Hello. Need some practice working with your trig identities and proving trig identities? Let's play around. Here's a fun and fancy little problem. They want us to prove that 1 plus cosine x over 1 minus cosine x equals cosecant x plus cotangent x squared. So in general, when you're doing a trigonometric proof, you're going to work with only one side of the equation. So let's go ahead for argument's sake and let's work with this side of the equation. And then maybe we'll do the whole problem again and we'll work with this side of the equation. So when you write your proof up, this side of the proof is basically just going to say that all the way down. For right now, I'm moving it out of our way so that we've got some room to play. Now, when I look at this and I have to try to figure out how to start, there are no squareds here that I can do a substitution in, no tangent that I can convert to sine and cosine or, a cosecant and a cotan. So the only place where there is some movement is I have a fraction. And so what I may want to try to do is play around with this denominator. So when I see 1 minus cos x, it occurs to me that if I multiply top and bottom by the conjugate, right, meaning this is a minus between these two terms, so if I put a plus between those two terms, then I'm going to wind up making my middle term disappear, right? If I do 1 minus cos x times 1 plus cos x, I'm going to end up with 1 minus cos squared x on the bottom. Now on the top, that's going to give me 1 plus 2 cos x plus cos x squared. The next thing I'm going to do, the whole reason I did this, is 1 minus cos x squared. There's a substitute there. That just becomes sine squared x. All right, so now I am keeping an eye toward that this is where I'm going. I now have 3 terms, each of which is over a sine squared x. So what I may do next is the following. I might separate this denominator into these 3 terms. 1 over sine squared x, well, that's the same thing as cosecant squared x. Cos squared x over sine squared x, well, that's the same thing as cotangent squared x. And I can see here my cos squared x, that's going to be the first term. My cotan squared x, that's going to be my last term. My middle term here would be 2 cosecant x cotan x. Well, I've got my 2. Now, how do I turn this into cosecant times cotangent? Well, let's take our sine squared and rewrite that as sine x times sine x. Well, we can take this middle term and separate this into 2 over sine x times cos over sine x. 2 over sine x can be rewritten as 2 cosecant x. And cos x over sine x can be rewritten as cotan x. And there's my middle term, 2 cosecant x cotangent x, 2 cosecant x times cotangent x, which means this whole thing can now be rewritten as our proof. Let's do it again and see if we can prove it from the opposite side. Okay, so let's go ahead and take our problem and distribute it out. All right, and let's start converting to sines and cosines. Okay, and we have the whole thing over sine squared x, so let's put it over sine squared x. And now let's go ahead and take this guy and rewrite it as 1 plus cos x squared. Let's take this guy and substitute back in 1 minus cos squared x. Let's factor, and now we can cancel a 1 plus cos x out of top and bottom. And we've just proven it the opposite way. Okay, keep watching on my ever-growing trigonometry playlist. Leave a problem in the comments if you've got something you'd like to see me make a video of. Consider subscribing to my channel so you know when I put out a new video. And as always, Keep on mathing.